Alright, Sunfire needs some maintenance. We had to pull the transmission earlier today. We were ripping it in second gear. We went to shift into third. All of a sudden, limiter. Just bouncing off the limiter. So, transmission's gotta come out. As you can see, just the engine in there. For those of you that don't know, this is a 2.2 pushrod engine. And it's got the 4-speed automatic. The 4T40. Right over here, we have it out. It was bouncing off limiter at the top of second. Right when it went to shift into third, limiter. So, we got it out. We got the converter over here draining. We're gonna see what the damage is. Here we go, we're gonna open it up on video. So during this catastrophic transmission event, I was actually logging with HP tuners as well as fuel tech. You can see here we start off the pull in second gear. It downshifts back into first. Does the 1 to 2 shift right here. See, the red line is RPM. This is HP tuners. Second gear, we rev it out all the way to about 6,400. Then boom, all of a sudden RPM jumps way up to over 7 grand as third gear hits. And that's it. After that, the power just falls right off. Input shaft and output shaft drop. One thing to note, input shaft and RPM are still close together. That means those two lines right there, that means the input shaft is not broken. That means something else, like the chain possibly. So we can see as we turn, we did the right hand turn, then we revved it up a little bit there. You can see input comes up, input shaft RPM comes up with RPM. That means the transmission input shaft is still connected to the engine, which is a good thing because we have that expensive input shaft in there. But output shaft, it basically just tapered off because that's tied to the wheels. That's basically wheel speed. Just tapered off and that was it. So first off, we have to take off this range selector, whatever you call it. It's got, I believe, a 1/2 inch here. And it has a 7/16. I believe. Oh, we already took that one off. There was a 7/16 right there. So this whole thing is going to wiggle off. There we go. I like to put my bolts back. Now that the air compressor's off, we're going to remove this thing. A couple dowel pins. There's one right here, and there's one on the left here. I forget, it's one of these ones here. Lift this right off. Let's assess the damage here. I use that as my little tray for all my trans parts. Right off the bat, I like to take a look in here. Oh, the chain is loose. So it looks like we definitely broke the chain. That makes sense because the input shaft was okay. As you can see in here, We already got the O-ring off. We have a 4T65 input shaft that we trimmed a little bit. But this looks like it's going to be a relatively cheaper fix. We just have to get all the bits of the chain out of here. That chain should be up against this gear here. And it goes all the way here to the input shaft, which is down under the pump. So we'll tear it down and we'll see where the chain went. So first thing is the shift linkage. This is what moves around when you're going into park, reverse drive, whatever. As you can see, that detent, I think they call it, moves around. So we'll leave it in park and we'll release this. And this will be loose, so you have to be careful not to lose that. It'll move around when you pull off the valve body. We have our electrical. These are the A and B solenoids. The force motor, this controls the transmission pressure. Over way back here, we have the torque converter solenoid and the main pressure switch, I guess you call that. And this right here is the pump, generates the pressure. So you want to use two hands with these things very carefully because they get brittle, especially if you've overheated the fluid. Release all these. And there we go, the electrical harness is disconnected. Put it off to the side. Now pretty much everything here is 8mm bolts, except these two that hold the second gear back in place. So now we'll remove the pump. These I do not torque down at all. Pretty much I leave them at like 8 foot-pounds or something I think it calls for, so. Look at that. And that's the pump shaft. Everything here is just fine because we had good pressure, just broke the chain, so we don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Put that all in the bin. I like to keep the bolts on the parts. Sort of when I put it back makes it easier, so. So we're going to try to remove the channel plate and the valve body as one piece. To do that, you actually can leave a few bolts in. Those ones only connect those two together. There's a couple bolts that you have to leave in. You'll see in a second here. We're going to start off by the second gear support. These two bolts are 10mm and they hold the second support inside the unit. They pull it up to the channel plate. So they're really tight. Whoops. There we go. And there's a retainer sort of thing on it. Pull that up nicely. That is what holds second gear. The second gear fluid pressure holds it to the channel plate, so it's super critical that you don't strip those or you don't get them too loose. I don't know what the torque spec is specifically, but if you over torque those, you strip the second gear unit inside there. You'll see in a second. Now there's a few that we leave in here that will actually allow us to not mess with the gasket here, because these two will come up in one piece. So we'll see if we can remember which ones they are. We get the extension over here. I don't think these should be in there too tight. So these are actually 8mm. Those two were 10, these are all 8. So I know this corner we leave that one in. The two far ones here. These two on the pressure switch have to come off for sure, but I think all the other ones stay. So just the top two come off. This one for sure. That one stays, and these three stay. But this one comes off. And then all the surrounding ones have to come off for sure. Sorry if you can't see this. I'll get a better shot of which ones I'm taking out right now. Just take the camera here and show you guys. So everything in the outside comes off, like these two, This one, this one, this one, this one. That one there, that one there. That one stays. That one comes off, comes off. It stays. I've actually marked the ones that stay with the black marker before I did this, just so I knew. All those come off. And the only two that come off are these two. Everything else is able to actually stay, because they secure the valve body to the channel plate. So the whole thing actually should come loose now. Let's give it a wiggle. I have to get a... All right, we got our screwdriver here. We're just gonna lightly pry in a spot that doesn't have the gasket without pulling the whole thing over. It should come up. Let's see, I think maybe we missed something. That one, that one, that one. I think actually we forgot this bolt right here. Let's go ahead and get that one. Try this again. I like to pry from right here. There we go. And up here. Very nice. We probably take this manual shifter out before we lose it. Oh, looks like it won't go. Let's see. Now we just put it in a bind. That's okay. We'll pull that out after. But for now, we can lift this whole channel plate valve body as an assembly right out. You got to separate this side too, so get the screwdriver, pry in a spot that's safe. It's coming up soon. There we go. There we go, she's up. Put the camera back down. I'll pull this whole thing up. Alright, we'll lift this channel plate, valve body assembly, without ripping the gasket underneath, hopefully. That's the goal. Because we do not want to wait weeks for a new gasket. It's stuck in the corner. That's okay. Very gently release the gasket here. We have some damage in here for sure. There we go. Oh, fluid and bolts going everywhere. That's okay. Get a shot of this carnage over here. The chain definitely snapped, as you can see. And it lodged itself in there. Wow. Just a second here. So one side is free. I just hope there's no other damage. Oh, there it goes. The chain is free. Look at that. Absolutely brutal. This is supposed to be the wide chain as well. This is the 7/8 chain. It's supposed to only break in the heavy Grand Am cars or whatever. My car only weighs about 2,500, so I don't know what it was yet. Could have been lack of lubrication. Could have been maybe the shifts were set too hard, something like that, but I had that proper. That goes up. Those two master links go up. And let's check for other damage here. The input shaft sometimes has problems. But this is a very expensive unit from ZZP, Canadian, eh? And yeah, it looks completely fine. That's good, because this is like 700 Canadian shipped with duty and everything, so I'm glad that did not break. And there's a washer that goes, or thrust washer, whatever you want to call it, that goes right here. We will keep that in there for now. Our gasket we will be saving because we are cheap. Pull it off the dowel pins right there. I like to hang it up on my engine stand right here, my engine hoist. There's the wide gear from the 4T45. And this is what I was talking about. This is the second gear drum. All the fluid pressure for all gears goes through here. So there's like third gear, second gear. I don't know which holes exactly, but get that out of there. So yeah, this thing, you have to make sure you do not strip out these two bolts here. You'll have a bad day. You'll lose line pressure. You can actually see it's kind of rough here. This thing's been probably knocking itself into the channel plate real hard from the shifts. You can see right there, there's some pitting too. But I'll probably slap it back in. You know how it is. All right, let's take out the second gear support. Now the apply piston is right here. This is basically, this whole thing applies the gears together. Or I should say applies the clutches and steels against the backing plate. You'll see when we take that out. Put that over there. Here we have the clutches and steels and the backing plate. So let's just quickly look them over. Everything looks perfect in second gear over here. They look exactly how I put them in. Ooh, that one got a little hot. Normal though. And that got hot, but I had that machined. So second gear, perfect. Now inside we have the reverse. We'll take out the band first, if we can get it out. It's a little tricky, you gotta wiggle it out. I should have taken out the accumulators on the inside. Oh, there it goes. Or sorry, the servos are under the plate, under the pan, I should say. Should have taken those out first because that actually holds that band in. There's like an anchor that actuates. And in here we have reverse. Pull that out. Definitely won't be seeing any issues here. We had no problem with reverse, so I'm not even going to take that apart. Usually you want to check your clearance in here. See, we got about 80,000. No big deal in there. That looks good. Now what I really want to see here is this is the third gear stack. This whole thing comes out. Inside here, I've done a few little modifications. We're going to see what that looks like in a second here. Third gear clutches and steels are all inside here. Now before we look at that, we're going to take out the planetary junk inside here. You always have to check these things for wobble or play, all that stuff. I'll check them over later, but now there's a drum. I want to twist it out. There it goes. Oh, don't want this whole thing to fall right over. But inside there, there's another. This is all your gearing and whatnot. Your band rides on here. I'll open that up later. But when we take this out, we have our forward clutches inside there. So all that in there. We have a, I think, 8 clutch sack. Those only get applied when you put it into drive, so it's not what they call a shifting clutch. It's a holding clutch, I believe they call it. So I wasn't having any issues with that. I'm just going to leave that. That'll be thrown right back in it. No big deal. We'll just get all this out of the way. And there's just a band left in there. This is our, I think this is the intermediate band. I forget. It's either the forward band or the intermediate band, one of those two. But it looks brand new. There's a low reverse, yeah, actually, this is the low reverse band. And this is the intermediate band, I'm pretty sure. All right, so this is the third gear stack up. Inside here, there's also the coast clutches and a couple things, so we'll take this thing apart here. Hopefully everything looks good, because I did a few little improvements to it. First, we got to get off our snap ring holding the, I don't know, they call it the sun gear. And that comes off. Got our bearing. And we got a couple other pieces. I'm no trans expert. I don't know exactly what they're all called, but sun shell, sun gear, whatever. There we go. Ooh, everything looks okay. Whoops. Whole bunch of pieces there. Don't mix them up. We got our stack up here. Proper clearance. Nothing failed in there. We have our welded sprag right here. Looks like all the clutches. One of them looks a little different colored there in the middle, but I think we are in luck. What we've also done is we've done a different drum. I've actually sort of filed down a couple spots here so the drum sits deeper in there, so I can actually fit an extra clutch and steel in there. And I've also sort of shaved down the backing plate, so I was able to get from the normal six clutch stack up to a 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which adds a little bit of holding capability for the third gear, which is a problem in these units. Big problem. So here we have another washer. And let's get the snap ring off here. This one's a heavy snap ring I put in here. It's from a different drum, actually. It's hard to get out for sure. You gotta kind of work it with one screwdriver. There it goes. Now everything will come off. Now let's take a closer look. Now to fit the extra clutch and steel in here, I did a lot of work. I actually manually shaved each clutch like 5,000th each one, just to add that little bit of extra clearance. So everything looks perfect. Happy to see that. We got a 7 clutch stack up in this thing. And here we have a couple tricks. We got a welded sprag here. We got the apply piston looked a little messed up. We'll have to probably change that. So no big deal. We'll get this thing back together. Start doing pulls again.